You have bills to pay. You have your survival skills kick in, and you have to get to a point where you have to find a way to take care of yourself. And so now you're saying you're doing a production company. So you're looking to find other actors, other actresses to come in and do what exactly? So how's this production company supposed to work?
So the production company is mainly geared towards film and television. And it is going to be akin to Sony Productions or Columbia House. So that caliber. So it's going to take some time, to progress towards that point. But also we're going to do events, live events across the country. So right now we'll start in Chicago and then move to various different states. So it'll have all elements of a typical production company. And then eventually we will branch off into music. But honestly, I'm just I'm pretty much what my faith is that whatever I really have always dreamed of this production company, so I really do believe that it's going to happen. So it's right now just in its infantile state, but I believe that it's going to be bigger and larger than I even imagined.
All right. So what are some of the things that you're going to need in order to make your dream, your production company, come to life?
I'm glad you asked. Earlier this year, around the spring of 2014, I did a huge campaign looking for filmmakers, for actresses, for poets, for any of the performing artists, singers, musicians, but also looking for marketers and publicists and graphic designers, just everything. So the name of the production company, is called Command. Thus far, we have we're still looking. We have our team of administrators and producers. So I have a few producers that we're working with, but we're getting ready to do an open casting call at the beginning of the year. And we are also always looking for the behind-the-scenes workers. So it's going to be a continuous, kind of like a carousel, just of people coming on. So we're looking for people that have a heart for the arts, and have those people, kind of like what you described, those of us that have kind of had dreams that were in us, and it felt like they weren't going to happen because life happened, but there's always been something kicking inside of us. Don't let that dream die. And that's what Command is for. Command is really for those people that have had talents, that have had gifts, that have had areas where they wanted to see the arts flourish, and because of whatever, they haven't yet had the opportunity, but the time is now.
I believe now. The time is now for everything. I mean, everything happens in the now. Another thing another suggestion I would give you is also with interns. I find that a lot of times people want to do internships, which means that they're not necessarily getting paid, but it's kind of a win-win. You get what you're looking for, and you get what you're looking for is because you're actually going to have somebody who has the talent, the marketability, and the skill level that you're seeking, and also you're able to give them what they're seeking, which is the visibility.
Right.
And
you know what?
It's kind of a win-win.
It is a win-win. It's funny you mentioned that. I just did an internship. We had an intern as a production assistant over the summer. So I just had a summer intern. So we're always looking for those that are looking to intern for any of the areas. If you don't have a talent or you don't feel as though you sing or dance, don't worry. There's an internship for everybody.
Okay.
I'm always looking for interns.
That is awesome. And it's Command. That is awesome. I love that. I love the idea. I love the concept. And I love the fact that you're not giving up on your dream. You're not giving up on something that you started. No. And you're just going to say, well, whatever. Because there's too many people that sit back and think one day, someday, and I always feel like tomorrow is never going to get here. All you have is today. All you have is the moment. All you have is right now. And you're actually taking that in and you're making it happen. And you're also doing that on top of being in a school situation where you're still a teacher, so you're still able to feed yourself. And so so my next question is, how do you find balance?
How do I find balance? Well, first of all, I find balance in my belief system, and the book that I value the most is the Bible. And so I live my life believing that there were plans that I was supposed to live out that were created for me before I was even born. And they weren't just for me, but they were for others, and to share and to make our world not just a place to live in, but a place where we can all share and be peaceful, and where people are actually growing and they're seeing their lives change for the better. So it's funny you mentioned that mantra. My mantra is make it happen. Since I started my performing arts company when I was 17 years old, and I started off with just a small group of youth and young adults, and that company grew to over 150, and I was just 20, 21 years old, 150 youth and young adults aging from 5 years old to maybe about 40, and fresh out of college, just like make it happen. These are the things that you were called to do. This is what you were created to do. Let's just get it done. It's the same thing in education. I walked into a classroom when I was 21, never had went to school for education, never once knew anything about any theories or pedagogies. I ended up walking out as the teacher of the year for that particular school, and now here I am an assistant principal. So I always tell my students, I always tell people, no matter what, there is no limit except for the limits that you set for yourself.
That is correct. I mean, because basically what you've just told me, what I'm listening to from what you're not saying is the fact that you have found your purpose. You have found you're living an instinct. Very few people live on instinct because so many people actually look for others to give them admiration and acceptance to what they're doing. And what you're telling me is that you're following your purpose. You stepped into your purpose. You stepped into something that you have, like with school, for example, being an assistant principal. You're telling me that you've taken something that you had little to no experience with, but you've been able to use your talents, your abilities to actually go to accelerate in places that most people have spent their entire lives to learn how to do, and you've done almost seamlessly only because you followed your instincts. And I appreciate that. I wish that more people would actually take on their thoughts, their gifts. A lot of times you may not know what your gift is, but what you've done is that you've gone out there, like you said, just do it. And you've done it, and you found something that fits for you, and that's awesome. And so,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, but my whole thing is that I'm loving the fact that you've gone on instinct and that you found your purpose. You found what fits for you. And so when it comes down to others, what advice would you actually give other people in following your dreams?
I would say this. Number one, as long as what you're doing is larger than yourself, you will find rewards that are intangible. I'm going to say that part again. If what you're doing is not just for you, you will see rewards that are intangible and are even cyclical for not just people that you are near, but the people that will be affected by what you're doing. The second thing is, the question is always, how do I find my purpose? How do I find my purpose? And I say, and I learned this very important lesson. You are in purpose right now. I'm going to steal a quote, or I'm going to borrow a quote from my pastor who says, your life is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing right now. In other words, you are where you want it to be, literally. And that doesn't mean that the hiccups that happen in life and the things that are thrown at us at different points of our lives, and sometimes we're born in situations, you can rise above all of that, But often we're not taught how to advance from one place to another place or one level to another level. We don't really look at models of success as teaching models. We look at them as, oh, they did that. I could never do that. Sometimes people count themselves out. But one of the things my mother used to always tell me was, if they could do it, why couldn't you do it? And then she used to always also tell me, the only thing that people could say to you besides a yes is a no. And the only difference between a yes and a no is that you don't know what they're going to say unless you ask. So I learned those things kind of earlier on, you know, just like don't be afraid. Don't limit yourself. When people tell you no, figure out a way to do that thing that's beating on the inside of you. What is it? What are those dreams? What are those, like you said, those instinctual things that you're created to do? And then finally, a lifelong lesson is what do you see yourself doing for free? If money was never a factor and it's something you could not live without, what would that thing be that would give you the highest level of fulfillment? What would those things be? And once you find those, you know, we all were created for a purpose. So
we all.
Everybody, you know.
I do. I mean, I think a lot of times people are motivated, they're stopped by fear. And fear to me is just false evidence appearing real. It's not real at all. It's just something that you have stuck in your brain that makes you feel that you cannot do something. And and I love when you're making a comment about how you just do it. You're following something. You're following instinct. And the only thing that a person can say is no. But there's so many people that are afraid of rejection. Yeah. It's just unbelievable. Another question is how do you deal with not just rejection, but critics? Because I'm quite sure you've had a lot of critics all the time over the time that you started. So how do you deal with criticism?
You know what? This is so good. You're hitting home. So I got an early lesson on constructive criticism and just plain old rejection. When I was younger, I always was that kid that wanted to sing, I wanted to dance, I was funny, but I wasn't really good at singing or dancing. And that was something, it was like I was good, but I had to learn to be better. So I was amongst a group of youth who we were all doing a bunch of things, and I kind of got rejected from the group just for a small stint, you know, from not doing a show or dance or whatever it was. And I remember 10 or 11 years old crying to my mother and my father. My dad was always telling me, toughen up, you know, like, you don't have to cry about that. That's not a big deal. My mother told me that once you get done crying, what are you going to do? So there was never really a place for me to just cry and then walk away and not be great. There was always an expectation of, okay, there's still greatness in you, so what are you going to do? So I made it my business because I didn't have any rhythm. So that was the biggest thing. I had to teach myself to have rhythm. And it's quite funny. At 16 years old, I started a dance group that started off with just me doing a dance with a friend, and it grew to a dance group that toured to New York, to Florida, to Indiana, all over the Midwest. It was amazing what happened when I didn't throw in the towel, because I could have cried and just let that be the end of it. So that was my early rejection, and I would tell anybody, everybody gets told no. Everyone is rejected. That's a part of life. My next lesson was I wanted to be an actress. Well, I had no training, so I went to college for theater. If you go into any of the arts, that is probably the most critical industry, besides going into medicine or law. Like, that is the most critical industry, because you're always, like, that is the business. You're going to be told yes or no all the time, and you can't let it affect your character. You can't let it affect your growth, and you definitely cannot let it steal your joy, you know. So every day, I mean, honestly, being a theater, having a degree in theater means that I'm able to stand in front of people day in and day out, and literally people tell me, nope, you're not fit for it, or yes, I want you, or if you was a little taller, or if you were this, or if you were that. And some of the things you realize you couldn't change that anyway. And so you start to see that your steps, you're like some things you don't need anyway. So sometimes when there is a no, it's a good reason. Usually it probably is a good reason when you're told no. And sometimes when you're told no, it's an opportunity for you to really defy that no and do great outside of being told no. So that was, I would probably say, my crash courses. I'm so glad that it happened to me because it hurt at the time, all the times of rejection. But those times make you. You know, those are the things that I could stand up